Hey everyone, Warwick's here. So we're back, continuing our deep dive into the Druid talent trees, minus Balanced Druid, because again, I don't know anything about the spec right now. Today we're going to finish up the third of the three Druid specs that I'm going to do, and that is Resto Druid. So we're going to dive right into this. Basically, some things to keep in mind. This is off of Wildhead's talent calculator. This is all, of course, based on the information that Blizzard has released before a public alpha has been doing, or at least a public-facing alpha has been going on. Obviously, these numbers are going to be subject to change. Talents are going to be moved around, tweaked, I'm sure, and we'll be looking at updates as we go. As things get updated, I'll try to do little spot videos here and there on them, even if it's just something quick that I throw up on, even on something as simple as Twitter, or make a short here, whatever the case may be. We'll try to get some videos out as we get updates on the Druid, Death Knight, and eventually when they release them, the Monk trees, because those are the three specs that I'm looking at as mains. I will dive into some other talent trees as they are released based on what I know, what very little I know of the specs. Give you an opportunity to educate me on when those trees are released. But for right now, Druid and Death Knight, two classes I think I know pretty well, minus Balanced Druid. So what we're going to do in this video, if you haven't seen any of the other two previously, Feral Druid last week, Guardian Druid 2 weeks ago, at least as of release, is that I'm going through and basically going to explore a talent build that I think might be interesting for the spec, and find different ways to be able to kind of lay out some initial thoughts as I've really dove into these trees a little bit more, and I'm beyond my first impressions, and I've really done some analyzation of the trees to figure out what might be good, what might not be good. So we're going to dive in with the Resto Druid tree here. First off, we're going to start off with Rejuvenation, and you get Swift Mend for free, so those are the 2 talent points. We go from there. We're going to get Remove Corruption, of course, because you're going to need it, and then along with increased healing and magic damage. Now here's where you kind of get your first set of choices. You have the option of, let me slide this camera over a little bit, get it out of the way of the talent tree so we can see everything. There we go. Apologies. So here we have our options. So it kind of depends on how you want to end up building your character. So you have the option of doing something like balance affinity style stuff, where you grab Starfire, Star Surge, and Moonkin form, and then maybe you grab something like Hibernate, which if you want to do some owl weaving, you can. I kind of prefer this when I do Resto Druid now, but I know that I need to get into kitty weaving, and so that's the side that I'm going to take. So we're going to grab Rake, Thrash, Swipe, and Rip. That opens up this row of the tree. We'll come back to the rest of these in just a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and grab Wild Charge, just because I think it's universally useful for a variety of reasons, along with Soothe and Stampeding Roar, getting our utility built in, and then also increased healing done, which, a flat healing increase. It's not pretty, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's useful, as well as Wild Growth, which is a core Druid healing spell. So now we need 6 more points to spend in order to get down below this required 20 line. And we're going to go back into the Feral tree. So we're going to grab, or the Feral side of the tree rather. So we're going to grab 3 points in increased armor and physical damage, so that when you kitty weave, you are getting a little bit more damage output. And we're going to grab Skull Bash. And then we have some choices here to grab our last 3 points. We can grab Frenzied Regen into improved Bark Skin to help your defensive prowess. You can grab Feline Swiftness and Maim to give you a single target combo point spending stun and some increased movement speed while you're in cat form. I'm assuming that's while you're in cat form, because it always kind of is. And that'll be, 2 of the 3 points that you need there. For me, I like to be a little bit on the safe side, so what I'm going to do is grab Frenzied Regeneration and Iron Fur, because you can shift and then try to use Iron Fur, or at least shift into bear form and Frenzied Regen to give you some health when you go there. Alright, so now we're down to the 20 section of the tree. We'll be coming back up. We're going to grab Bersol's Vortex, Innervate, and Nature's Vigil, as well as Improved Rejuvenation. We're also going to grab Lakara's Teachings to give you that haste when you're in your normal form, which, haste is a valuable stat for Resto Druid, and probably will continue to be so in the next expansion. So basically what this choice down here does is give you more healing on Rejuvenation, which is a priority heal that you put on. You get Mob Control and Ursols, you get Innervate, of course, to help you with your mana, and Nature's Vigil, which I think is one of the more interesting new slash, it might be old, but it's new to me, talents that we've gotten in the tree so far, where you kind of get your own version of passive damage and healing, which is what makes Holy Paladin and Disciplined Priests, when Disc isn't undertuned or Holy's not overtuned, what makes them so powerful. Now we have 4 points left to spend in the tree. There's a few different ways that we could go about doing this. What I'm going to do is grab Improved Stampeding Roar to get that type of cooldown. We're going to grab Thick Hide to reduce damage that you take, and then the final point we're putting in Ursoc's Endurance, so that way if you do use Bark Skin, you won't have Survival Instincts, but when you do use Bark Skin, you get a little bit of an Absorb just to kind of help keep yourself sustained. So this setup, I think, is a good defensive setup with some little bit of offensive potency. You can shift into Kitty form and Skull Bash. Now, that is going to take some skill. It is going to take some knowledge of fighting counters and stuff when you can shift when you shift and kick. You may be a situation where you might be like the first kick on the pull when everyone's got, you know, a lot of their tools up to be able to sustain themselves. And then after that, you go back into your regular form and heal, or if you're staying in cat form to damage, do it that way. So like, there's some potential here, but I think this gives you really good, some offensive potential through, you know, moon firing and then dropping in. And then it also gives you some good defensive potential through Frenzied Regen, Iron Fur, Thick Hide, Ursoc's Endurance, all giving you some pretty strong defensive tools to help absorb big hits and kind of keep yourself as high as possible in your HP bar while you are trying to top off the rest of your group. So I like this tree for Resto Druid in particular. Like Feral and Resto Druid, I think get it pretty well. Guardian, it's a little underwhelming, but overall I like the Druid class tree. I think I've said that in all 3 videos now. They just did a good job with it. Moving on to the Resto Druid side of the tree, we're going to grab Life Bloom, we're going to grab Omen of Clarity, we're going to grab Nature's Swiftness, and we're going to grab Efflorescence. We're also going to grab Improved Life Bloom to give it basically mastery benefit, and we're going to grab Iron Bark, which is your tank DR or player DR. And we're also going to get the cooldown reduction on it. As you can see, that drops us below now the 8 points. So this little row right here, I think this row will depend on what content you're doing. If you're a Mythic Plus player, I think Improved Regrowth is going to be your better option because you tend to regrowth targets that already have regrowth on them, especially in tank healing scenarios. So this just makes those second or third regrowths that you have to cast on a target much more impactful versus the one target here, the 1 point Improved Wild Growth. Wild Growth already hits all 5 targets in Mythic Plus without this talent, so you won't need it if they hit a 6th target because there is no 6th target. But in raid situations, you're going to want that 6th target because the more healing you do, the better. Or the more efficient your healing is, the better. So I think this will be definitely your Mythic Plus choice. I'm going to go ahead and put 2 points in Improved Regrowth because I'm going to do this as a more Mythic Plus focused, but we're going to talk about stuff that's raid viable. We'll go ahead and grab Unstoppable Growth to let Regrowth's healing fall off less, and grab Tranquility so that you can get that big raid cooldown, as well as Ysera's Gift to basically heal yourself, basically give you a consistent small self-heal, and also a passive sort of healing to nearby party members. So as you can see now, that opens up more down this row, and we have some options that we can choose now. Cultivation is another little hot that contributes to your mastery, so we'll go ahead and grab that. Soul of the Forest, I think, will be much better. I think it's good in general, but I think will definitely be much better in Mythic Plus situations, and go from there. And then we get our choice here. I'm going to go with Cenarian War just because I think it's universally pretty solid. Probably less so in raids, but definitely in Mythic Plus it's really good. Abundance, probably going to be your better option in raid situations. So overall, a good choice note here because you have a Mythic Plus and a raid, what I think will be a raid choice going overall. We'll go ahead and grab Improved Tranquility and Wild Growth, basically to heal more the lower the target's health are. So again, allows you to have like a pseudo oh shit button for AoE healing. Right now we're going to skip Stonebark, and I'll explain this one here in just a minute, but I want to finish out the rest of the tree first. So we're going to go ahead and grab Spring Blossoms, which I think is just, going to be universally good here. Overgrowth may have some very niche potential, but Spring Blossoms is just such a good AoE heal. You can drop your Efflo in a melee group, you can drop it in a ranged group, in a raid situation, and they're going to get additional healing over 6 seconds, which again contributes to mastery. And then Abundance, Overgrowth just, basically allows you to put all of your hots on at one time, which if you're anticipating damage patterns well enough, you should be able to avoid needing a button like this. And like I said, Spring Blossoms I think is just so universally good. We're also going to go ahead and grab Autumn Leaves, give you an additional duration on Rejuve, which we'll take. And you can use this as like a good spot healing. So like if, for example, if you have like Thrash cast going off in Halls of Atonement with the Shards of Halkias, you just rejuve everybody, and if with this talent going in place, it would heal for an additional amount, so hopefully it could be enough to sustain their damage, or sustain the damage that's incoming. And even not, it could be used for like a spot heal. So if they get hit with like a boss mechanic that just does damage one time, just throw the rejuve on them and move forward with your life. We are going to grab Grove Tending to again add another hot, and we'll grab Improved Innervate because it opens up this bottom part of the tree. And then we're also going to go ahead and grab Germination because it opens up this part of the tree, which is what I'm really focused on. So right now we have 5 points left to spend. And what I'm going to look at here is Vision of an Unending Growth. I think niche usefulness in raid, but beyond that, I don't think it's going to be very useful beyond that. So we're going to skip it. Here, I think both Flourish and Verdant Infusion are going to be useful depending on what content you're doing. Verdant Infusion, definitely a Mythic Plus oriented one, because if things are going well, you're only healing one target anyways. So this just gives you longer hots, double Cenarian Ward possibilities, things like that on Verdant Infusion. Flourish, I think, will be good in raid situations, especially if you're kind of being the one to raid heal, because you just throw out, you know, Wild Growth, you get out a few Rejuves, a Life Bloom or two, maybe a Cenarian Ward dropped on a tank or something like that, and then you just hit Flourish and you get, you know, 8 extra seconds on that, and basically double healing effect on it by increasing the rate of heal over time effects by 100%. So it just makes them tick harder, tick faster. Very good for like raid healing overall. So again, Verdant Infusion, I'm going to take this because it's the Mythic Plus, probably the Mythic Plus choice. We're going to skip Ephemeral Incarnation because that is the 4-piece Resto Druid set, but I don't think it's all that great overall. All right, on this side of the tree, we are going to go ahead and grab either Dark Titan's Lesson or Photosynthesis. So again, I think that this is going to be a situation where it depends on the content you're doing. My gut tells me that Photosynthesis is going to be useful, more useful in like raid situations, because you can get, you know, constantly life bloom yourself, and all your hots are going to tick faster, just increasing the overall raid healing that you're doing. Dark Titan's Lesson, I think, could be useful in both situations. I mean, really, both of these are useful in both situations. I think it's a matter of what you want your life bloom to do. Do you want your life bloom to kind of be an engine to the rest of your hots being better off, or do you want life bloom to just be an incredibly efficient heal that you can now spread through multiple targets? So I think it depends on your playstyle of what you want to do. I think both are perfectly valid, whichever one you choose. I'm going to grab Photosynthesis just for the purposes of this build, but if you pick Dark Titan's Lesson, I'm not going to flame you. There might be some much smarter Resto Druids that think that one of these is a choice that if you are taking it, you go from there. All right, that leaves us with 3 points. And there's a few different ways that you could go about your final 3 points. One talent in here that I think is very misplaced is Stonebark. So basically Ironbark, you already get a 20% DR, and then it gives the hots on the target an additional 20% effectiveness, but you're usually dumping something like a Swift Bend or a Regrowth or something like that onto a target to kind of spike their health pool back up. So I find this particular talent to be not as useful. It might be in a raid situation. I've never raid healed as a Resto Druid outside of LFR, which isn't a real raid situation. So from a purpose of Mythic Plus, I don't think this is useful, because when I Ironbark, I'm usually also following it up almost immediately with a Swift Mend, just to, again, spike heal somebody. I would like to see maybe Stonebark switched with improved Ironbark, and then it opens up this side of the tree so that you can get Memory of the Mother Tree in particular, because it allows you to spread heal in a raid situation. So if you are in a raid situation and you don't want the big cooldown of Convoke, then you can grab Stonebark into Memory of the Mother Tree. I think that's perfectly fine. Rampant Growth, I think I'm going to just ignore, because it just doesn't feel like it has synergies with the kit. Nourish is like just an on-demand single target heal. You also have Inner Peace that you could also use, grab 2 points in that. and then maybe drop a point in Nourish or drop a point into Convoke to give you like maximum cooldown efficiency in a raid situation, which I would probably take that route. I grab Inner Peace into Convoke with the last 3 points just to give you like biggest cooldowns. You get, you know, 60 seconds off Tranquility, you get 20% DR, immune to knockbacks. Think of a fight like the Jailer where, you know, there are knockbacks galore, you get immunity while you're tranking the whole raid. Useful stuff. For Mythic Plus situations, I think that there are options at the bottom of the tree that work. Circle of Life and Death is a possibility here. You could also grab Convoke into Improved Convoke to get the higher chance at wild growth. I think all 3 of these points are points pretty well spent. You could also just grab Convoke, Circle of Life and Death, and 1 point into Inner Peace. So like these last 3 points are super flexible depending on the raid situation. I think, again, this combo would be a raid situation. 2 points here, 1 point here would be a raid situation. I think for Mythic Plus, you might find a value in Convoke into Circle of Life and Death with 1 point into Inner Peace, just because it gives you, you know, when you put Moonfire in my build up, or you put on, you know, Rake and Rip, it allows you to just to have those tick a little bit faster. Overall, I think this is probably going to be good for raid scenario, or for Mythic Plus scenarios. In a raid scenario, I would yank the point out of Circle of Life and Death and put it into a 2nd point of Inner Peace to get that minute off of Trank, because there's just so many places where you could get value out of that 60-second Trank. If there's like a 1 minute damage event, then you'd have Trank basically available for all of it. The other thing that you can do in a raid situation is that if you're getting rid of getting rid of Improved Wild Growth, you come down here, grab these, grab this, and grab this. You still have, you know, quite a number of points left to spend here, so we're going to go ahead and grab Spring Blossoms, Grove Tending, Innervate. Raid situations, we grab Flourish. We'll go ahead and get Improved Convoke, Germination into, we'll just say Photosynthesis. I think this would be kind of like the raid side build that you would want to do. Again, if you want to grab the Stone Bark into Memory of the Mother Tree, I think that's fine as well. You probably have to give up Improved Incarnation and maybe even Photosynthesis and possibly Flourish. Just drop all 3 of these bottom row talents to potentially get that. But from a raid standpoint, I think this is probably your best setup. Really, all you're changing is this kind of middle row of talents. So the Resto Druid tree, some people I've talked to really hate it. Some people that I've talked to really like it. I think it's fine. Again, a few things that are misplaced. I think that they put, I think there needs to be a possibility that 1 or 2 of these are baseline. Something like Spring Blossoms probably just needs to be baked into Flow originally, because we've been taking Spring Blossoms for as long as I can remember. So maybe you do something like that, and that allows you to shift some talents around to make them a little bit more accessible. But overall, I think this is a fine tree. It definitely needs some improvement in some places. Obviously, numbers are going to be tweaked and stuff like that. I don't think it needs to be completely redone. Like, I think the Feral tree is closer to that sort of standard than the Resto Druid tree is. But I think this is fine. I think this build has some potential. I would really like the flexibility with like the last 3-4 points. Flexibility in talents that are very clearly like raid versus Mythic Plus options, or even raid versus or PvE versus PvP options as well. So, you know, for me, I'm pretty content with how this tree works out overall. It most likely would not be a main spec if I were a druid in Dragonflight, because I would most likely be tank or feral first. The rest of druid is like an option to just like, hey, we need a healer spot filled, I'll fill it in for the night, that type of thing. So that ends our look at druids. So starting next week, we will be looking at Death Knight talents. We're probably going to do them in alphabetical order. So we'll start with Blood Decay, then Frost, then Unholy, and then hopefully by then we have more trees released, or we have an alpha to be looking at, and we can talk about the news coming out of that as well. So until the next video, I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you're having fun. I hope you keep on gaming. I'll see you all in the next video.